You will be modeling the weapons you drew. But I'm going to show you some different models, different ways that I would attack different modeling things, and then you'll work on those, okay? It helps if we have the projector actually turned on, doesn't it? There we go. All right, so first thing, last class we made our project folders, or our organizational folders. We went into Maya, made a project folder, and then we're starting to work on our stuff. So as a reminder, when you left, you should have backed up your, so many files. You should have backed up that 2018 folder, okay? So before you boot Maya this time, you should delete the 2018 folder that's in there and drag your copy into that folder. If you do that, then when you go to open scene, then it should pretty much take you into that same scene folder that you had before. If not, then you can go through and reset up your project settings. When you were in Cinema, if you had textures that you loaded, basically what you'd have to do is you'd have to go into the preferences. Do I have Cinema open? I do. You'd go into the preferences here. You would go to your files area, and then you could tell Cinema, like, this is where my files are located. That way when you load textures, it points to that folder, okay? In Maya, when we set up all those project folders, Maya is smart enough, as long as we tell it, to know where to put stuff. So 2520 weapon, okay. So all of these folders here, Maya should automatically know, like, this is where our stuff is at. If we open up our scenes, and let's say we don't see our stuff here. So this is the stuff for a different 3D class. So I need to tell it I'm working in a different project, different folders. So you may have to do this. It's a good habit to get into. So I'm going to go to File, Set Project, and just find that folder. There's my weapon. I say Set. Okay, you don't go into the folder. You don't need to do anything else. Just say this is the project I'm working on. And now when I go to Open, it knows there's the weapon. So that's what I wanted it to work on. All right, so that's what we worked on last time, that sword, okay? So I'm going to group my stuff. Grouping is, it's on your hotkey sheet, but it's Control-G. I'm going to name my stuff, sword 01. And I'm even going to throw it onto a layer, which is this far right button with it selected. I can add the item and then call this Done Weapons. There we go. And then I'll just turn the visibility off. All right, so there. Did I spell that right? M-E-D, dang it. It's one of those stupid words. All right, so I'm going to go through how I would model some of these weapons just so you can get an idea for how I approach them, okay? So I'm going to start off first with this one here. So instead of the more kind of like oval shaped handle, this one looks like it has a pretty round handle. It also has a area to kind of put your wrist or your hand through. There's this metal piece, there's a ball, and obviously the ball has spikes on it, right? So I'm going to start off just as simple as I can with a, I'll start off with a cube, and that'll be my handle. Even though this is a cylinder, I'm going to use a cube to start off because I want to basically use this as an entire shape here. Okay, so this metal piece is going to come straight down, and this wrapping, because of the direction that it goes, that will be a separate object. So I'm modeling this handle all the way down to there, like if it was an actual piece of metal. So there it is. Remember, if I hit 3, it smooths it out. If I hit 1, it does that. Because this is going to have a cap on it, and because this part is going to be stuck in the ball, I can just right-click and delete these two faces. And now when I hit 3, it'll keep it as a nice, smooth cylinder, okay? I'm going to right-click and go back to object mode. All right, so now I want to create this little wrapping here. So I'm going to go to Create Polygons. And like I said before, we're always trying to figure out what is the best primitive to start with, okay? As you start playing with this, you'll get more comfortable with which primitives are good for what. So this here looks like a helix, and I believe Cinema also has helixes or heli, whatever you want to call them. So I'm going to go in here and find helix. Okay, I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. I'm going to scoot it down to the handle area, and then I'm going to play with the settings here. So I'm going to go to the height. This is mostly handle, like, or at least half of it is, right? So that looks like about half. I'm going to take my divisions down, and I'm going to take my coils up, and maybe take the, nope, that's good there, nope, radius, there we go. So I'm taking the radius up some. All I want from this, and I'm kind of like, you're seeing a lot of it for what I actually want. I only want the outside shell of this. I don't need, like, if I isolate this, this is the isolate button. I don't need all this inside stuff. That's just in the way. All I need is this kind of like shell that's going to wrap around, and that's what I'm trying to gather from this. So if it looks kind of funky, just give it a minute and then it won't. Okay, so just trust me that that's going to look fine. Okay. So now I'm going to isolate this again, and then I'm going to go through and delete the stuff that I don't need. So I'm going to first go to Faces, and in Cinema you had to go to a different button for this, but if you click on one face, hold Shift, and then you double click the face next to it, it will do a loop face selection. Okay? So that way it selects all the faces all the way around it in that path. Then I'm going to delete that. I'll do the same thing on the next one. Go. And probably the same thing here. I don't think I need all this.
What's the button combination for that?
Shift and then double clicking. And all I'm doing is trying to get this to the essence of the faces that I need. Okay. And what I do a lot of times, I'll select stuff, look around before I delete it. It took me 2 seconds to make, so in case I really screw up, I can always get that back. All right.
That's only on a helix shape?
That's on any shape. So a sphere, cone, cylinder, anything. Just Shift, double click, and it'll loop selection. That's the easiest way to select anything on a helix. All right, so now what I need to do is close off this gap here, because obviously this is closed off. So I'm going to go to Edges. I'm going to double click this edge, and that selects it all the way around. That's too much. Okay, I basically only want one side of this. So just so you can get an idea of what this is looking like, let me delete that and this. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to select just like the top edge here on the helix, but what's happening is it's doing this. It's grabbing the entire thing. So if I click on one edge and I Shift double click the end of where I want it to select, it will only select, basically they call it a path selection. So it's selecting the path from one edge to the other. Okay? A lot of little tricks like that you won't find in any menus very easily. So click, hold down Shift, double click that edge, and it selects just that. Okay? That's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to grab this edge, and then I think it's this one here. Shift, double click that one. Success. Okay? So that way I don't have both edges selected on these inner areas, because what I need to do is just move it forward, and then that will be fine. So I move this forward and see how it closes off the gap there. So now when I hit 3, see how nice that is? It's like gorgeous. It's like a braid. Cool. So I can delete this. I don't need that. Turn this back on. I'm going to hit 3 on here. I'm going to scale this in. That's maybe too much. I think I'm also going to delete this edge. Whenever we delete edges in Maya, don't just hit regular delete, because it doesn't get rid of the shape. I have to hit Control Delete, and then it will do that, which is perfect what I need. So now this thing is, obviously it looks weird, right? Like this, that area here doesn't wrap right. If this was an actual thing, the one piece would come in like this, but it would be tucked behind something else, so you wouldn't see that. So what I need to do is I need to slice, like right about here, straight across, so that I don't get that weird stuff. So if I switch to my top view, okay, spacebar my top view, or you can tap the spacebar, remember. There we go. Tap top view or side view, either one works. What did I do? I hit the wrong button. Oh my god. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go to the multi-cut tool. All the tools are up here, mesh tool. All the tools I go to are shift right clicking, and that's how I get to all of my tools. This tool works, you just click and drag. If I hold shift, it'll constrain it. If I hold the space bar, it does nothing. Never mind. I'm going to have to hit undo because I need this to be like right there. There we go. Okay, so that basically just like slices it right there. I'm going to do the same thing on this side, slice right there. So now if I go to faces, now I have a perfect line that I can then just delete this and just delete that.
How do you delete an edge again?
Edges, you control delete. Faces, you can just hit delete. All right, so that looks pretty good as far as the divisions. Now I'm going to go to the edges, grab all the edges going around it, so I just double clicked it, and I'm going to extrude the edge and just push it in. And the reason I'm doing that is so that when I hit 3, it gives me a nice like wrapping like that. So that looks pretty close to what I think that would look like in the real world. Okay, and there's a little weird pucker right there. That's fine because I'll have a cap on that that'll cover it up. Okay, so just so you can see what that shape looks like without being kind of twisted. It basically looks like this torus. Imagine this torus is like twisted like a spiral. Oops. And this, oops, not bevel. Come on, extrude. Is pushed in like that. Okay, so that's pretty much what it's doing there, is that we have this little edge here on the inside, this big edge, and then this little edge. And when we smooth it out, we get this like ring-looking thing. So in some cases, you could actually just use a cylinder and put that in several spots too, if you wanted. Like that's another option for, obviously not this one because it's like spirally, but on some of those you may find that that's what the handle looks like, is that they have something like this, right? And that's how I could do that, is just cylinder, 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 like that. Or one cylinder with a bunch of divisions. It's a sweet battle axe. Okay, you won't know right away where to put edge loops and all that. You just kind of guess, and then if you're wrong, you delete stuff and start adding stuff. If you're really wrong, you just delete the whole thing. Where's my shape at? Right here. Okay, so I need a little cap right here and a cap right there. So I'm going to use a torus for that. I'm going to rotate. I'm going to take my subdivisions. Notice how I'm taking my subdivisions down on everything, because I want everything to be as low resolution as possible. At some point, we're going to have to lay out the UVs, and that process is a lot easier when we have less divisions. If we have a lot of divisions, it becomes very time-consuming. I'm going to take the section radius down to 0.25. That looks good. I'm going to hit 3 just to make sure that that matches. Yes, so that should be good here. And then I'm going to duplicate it and just scoot this down to that side. There we go. I don't like that pucker there. Let me fix that. I thought that would just be hidden much better, but it's not. And the reason I have that, when I deleted the faces, I forgot that face. So I just deleted that extrusion I did on the edge, and I'm just going to redo it. It's still there, but I think that should cover it. Nope. Sometimes you just hit like a weird spot where it just doesn't, the world is not happy. There he is. So you see that like 1 point right there. It doesn't like that 1 point. So if I delete that point, then everything should be good. Maybe, we'll see. Yes. Everything is good. Cool. Okay. Also notice that I'm going to wireframe in shaded mode. 4 and 5 on your keyboard, that's your toggles for that. Those are on your hotkeys too, but you will find that to be indispensable, especially when you get close to the surfaces. Whoops. All right, so that's that piece. Now I'll make the crown of it, this thing. I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use a regular sphere. Possibly, I'm going to go to my sphere options. I'm probably lying. I'm lying. I'm not going to use a regular sphere. They have several other ones. Like there's one that is a platonic solid. One of these, I'm pretty sure. If I change this to cube. Scoot that up there. Nope, I thought one of those had some kind of cube options. Apparently not. There it is. So I changed that to a platonic, cube, quads, and then I added more subdivisions. So one subdivision should be fine. And then I'll make this huge. That looks like a decent size. Cool. It is a sucker. All right, so now I need the spikes on there, so I'm going to switch over to a cone. Let's not use a cone, because that's all triangles. I don't want triangles. I'm going to switch to a cube. And then I will grab the top face and just shrink the top face in. Grab the bottom face, delete it. So now when I hit 3, we have a nice cone. Okay. I could design this further if I wanted it to be, you know, razor sharp or something. Maybe I would take this face and scale it in some, move it in some, like that. Like that could be kind of like a cool design for it. I will stick to just the standard one just for our demo. Okay. So I need this one here. And if you look, obviously these are pretty much all over this, this thing, okay? If you like spending time just doing pointless things, then just duplicate it right here and rotate it, and duplicate this, and then rotate it, and then move it over. And you can spend literally an hour just doing that. I don't like to do that. So I mentioned before keeping everything we model right at the center. So I'm going to reset the translate Z and the translate X. Okay. So now this is back at the center of my world. This is back at the center of the world. If I take this one, which is actually too small, I like maybe that bigger. Yep. And I group it, so I just group it to itself. And then I can duplicate it, which is Control D. And then I can rotate this, let's say 72 degrees. Then if I hold down Shift and hit D again, what it's going to do is it's going to duplicate again that same amount. If I hit Shift D again, it does it again. If I hit Shift D again, it does it again. Okay? So that's a nice hotkey to have. Sometimes Shift D doesn't work. Sometimes it does. It all depends on how Maya feels that day. Nope, it's not rotating around the center point. Watch what happens here when I group something. Watch where the pivot goes. Right to the center. That's why I'm grouping it, is so the pivot jumps to the center. Okay? So now when I rotate it, it's going to rotate around that center point. The Control D just duplicates it the first time. So negative 72. When I hit Shift D, it says, okay, you just duplicated something and you offset it. How far did you offset it? Well, I'm going to offset it again, that amount. And so it's basically just like a step and repeat if you were an Illustrator. And do I want any more? Better. All right. So I scaled them up more because it still looked kind of wimpy, the smaller size. So now I'm just going to marquee the whole thing. I'm going to deselect these other ones. I'm going to group the ball together and slide it down here. And that should be good. Well, I think I need to rotate it. I don't like where the position is. That's good. It's much better. It's a much more effective killing weapon, right? And last I need is something to cover this hole, because that looks kind of weird. So let me isolate this shape. So I thought I could get away with just deleting that edge or that face right here. I can't. So I'm going to put it back in. So if I go to edge and I double click, and then I go to shift right click, I can say fill hole, and it'll fill the hole in. And then if I go to 3, that's what it does. So I'm just go back to 1, and then just insert an edge loop. Really close to that. So now when I hit 3, it holds that shape better. That's sufficient. Okay. And then, oh, I forgot the strap. Right. So if I want the strap part on there, I'm going to add a cube. You could start off with a cylinder with low divisions, but this works. And I'm just going to delete these faces here, and then just start to size things to how the strap would be laid out. If you get confused with this right-clicking, going to face, object mode, edge, vertex, all that stuff, this is obviously the quickest way to do that, face, object mode. But up here at the top, if I expand this, this here actually puts me in that mode where I can select faces, edges, points, and so on, or I can go back to object mode, okay? I do this though. There we go. Okay, so here's my strap like this. That's over here. I need some more divisions, so I'm going to go to insert edge loop. Add a couple more divisions. And now when I hit 3, there's that. And that looks pretty horrible until I extrude it and give it just a little bit of thickness. That's too much thickness. There we go. And now when I hit 3, now I have, some kind of strap on the back of that. Okay. So in this one here and the one we did before, you'll find a lot of the similarities in what other kinds of weapons you're doing. I'm going to group it still. This will be mace. I will put it on my done weapons. I'll show a couple other things that may come in handy. I'm going to go to a torus again. I'm going to take my divisions down to 8. That should be good. I'm going to go to my vertices. I'm going to take my section radius down also like 0.25. I think that's good. And I'm just going to pull this way and pull that way. And now if I were to hit 3, now you have a chain link. Okay, and then I can take this and duplicate it, rotate it, and then use Shift D, and now you have a chain. Okay, so that's something else that may come up. If you have any fancy shapes like this thing here, I'll do the battle axe thing real quick. Scoot that up. So first thing, we get the rough shape of it. Add some divisions. That should be good for that. 1, 2, 3. Yep. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And then I'm just going to grab these. And then just start to shape it. So I'm just grabbing things and scaling it out. It's pretty horrible until I throw in a bevel. Actually, I won't throw in a bevel. I will throw in an edge loop. And I'll also throw an edge loop here. Throw an edge loop there. And then I will also scale down these sides, because this should be flatter so it's sharper and more deadly. It's a bow tie, right? Oh, I'm forgetting the middle one. That's why it looks so horrible. There we go. There you go. So that looks better. If I need to crisp up this edge, just double click that edge there. I'm going to shift double click this edge. I'm going to shift double click that edge. I'm going to shift double click that edge. And then I will bevel. And I will put a really small bevel on there, like 0.01 apparently. So now when I hit 3, that's going to look a bit crisper. Maybe I'll put 2 segments. There we go. And then this, I think I really need to exaggerate it out further. Here. That's decent. Alright, so that's that. And little ornate type things here. Just like in cinema, you can really kind of play with how things are, created height-wise. Yes, that's good. It's just where the options are different. So with something like this, I'm basically want to extrude out each one of these faces to give me kind of like an ornate type thing. So it's like a flowery type thing. So if I extrude this and then I pull it out with the blue, you'll see what it does here. Most of the time when you extrude, you're going to grab the blue or play with the thickness or play with the offset. The one option I need here is to turn off keep faces together. So now all 4 of those faces are separate objects. And then I can shrink this in, scoot it up, oops. Switch to the move tool, scoot it up. And now when I hit 3, I'll have this kind of like ornate type thing I could throw on top of whatever. And I'll put that edge loop there, I'll put an edge loop here. Maybe an edge loop or an extrusion right here. There we go. So that could be something. So when you look at your stuff that you're doing, try to break it down into pieces. Don't try to model everything, especially initially, off of one piece. Like there's no way I would try to take this and get that to be like one piece. It would be a horrible disaster. If you look at the low-res version of this, it's only 458 triangles. The high-res one is 15,313, okay? If I look at all the stuff that's in my scene right now, I've gone over, but that's just because of how I'm doing this. I have 25,000 polygons in all the stuff inside my scene. So this one weapon is less than all of these by only 10,000 polygons. And that's important for rendering, it's important for gaming mostly. But you'll see the same kind of patterns and shapes all over the place. Like this bat is basically the same thing I did with the spiky ball, except all those little nubs are around the bat instead of the ball. Same kind of grips, same kind of ornate handling here. That one's kind of blockier. What is that, like an axe? Yeah. That thing, if I made a cube, I grabbed all the faces, I extrude it, keep faces together is off. I'm going to scale that in, scale this down a touch. I'm going to extrude again. Like, that's that thing. Kind of that thing. You can add some more divisions and really kind of shape it out. Edge loops, edge loops, edge loops. Oops, too far. There you go. Now it's fancy. Okay? So take one of your drawings you have and just try to model something. It may not turn out perfect, but don't be afraid to, if you get to the point where it's really not looking perfect, don't be afraid to just delete it and start it again. You'll find the next one's going to be much cleaner, much nicer looking, and then obviously you'll model it faster. Cool? Questions yet? Yes, sir.